You've probably stood there in the garden center on a bright spring morning, the air thick with the earthy scent of fresh potting mix and blooming flowers, eyes drawn to those lush containers spilling over with promise. You lift one into your cart, already picturing it brightening your patio or balcony through the long days of summer. A few months later, though, the leaves start to yellow, the stems sag, and by July it's a sad shadow of what it was. You wonder if you watered too much or too little, if the sun was too harsh or the soil too poor. Let me tell you, from one gardener to another, sharing thoughts straight from the soil, it's rarely your fault. The real issue often lies in choosing plants bred more for that eye-catching display shelf than for the real-life demands of a pot on your deck or doorstep. Those flashy annuals might look perfect in the store, but they weren't made to thrive with the kind of hands-off care most of us can actually give. What we need are perennials that don't just survive container life, they genuinely prefer it. Plants shaped by nature to handle the confined roots, quick-draining soil, and occasional dry spells that come with pots. Plants that return year after year, drawing in pollinators, softening edges, and turning a simple patio into a living, breathing space that feels like home. Over the seasons, I've watched these kinds of plants transform small corners of gardens across all sorts of climates, from the humid summers of the American Southeast to the cooler, wetter springs in parts of Northern Europe. They reward a little patience with months of color, texture, and even wildlife visits, all while asking for far less than you might expect. Let me walk you through 9 perennials that have become my go-to companions in containers. These aren't just tough survivors, many actually perform better in pots than they ever would in open ground, where competition from trees or heavy clay can hold them back. We'll explore each one with the kinds of real-world details that make sense for home gardeners like us. Those of you tending plots in USDA zones 3 through 9 or the similar temperate zones across the UK, France, Germany, and beyond. I'll share how they handle everything from scorching heat waves to lingering winter damp, plus simple ways to pair them for year-round interest. And because no garden story is complete without a few bumps along the way, we'll touch on common pitfalls and easy fixes, all rooted in soil health, natural rhythms, and the quiet joy of watching something thrive because you chose wisely. Before we dive into the plants themselves, though, there's one truth worth lingering on. The soil in your containers is the foundation of everything. I've learned this the hard way after watching a few early attempts fizzle out. Most bagged mixes from the store are geared toward quick-growing annuals and veggies. They hold onto moisture like a sponge, which is fine for a single season but can lead to compacted, soggy roots by year 2. For these perennials, aim for a lighter, more forgiving blend that mimics the well-drained conditions many of them evolved in. A simple recipe I've come back to time and again is 1 part coconut coir or peat-free alternative, 1 part perlite for those essential air pockets, and 2 parts finished homemade compost. It drains fast after a summer downpour, yet holds just enough to keep roots happy during dry spells. In cooler European climates where winter rains can linger, I lean heavier on the perlite to prevent any chance of waterlogging. And here's a small win that saves both money and effort. You don't need to replace the entire mix every year. At season's end, gently remove the top couple of inches of spent soil, top dress with fresh compost and a sprinkle of worm castings, and your perennials will wake up refreshed in spring, their microbial partners in the soil ready to work again. Now, let's meet the first of these container stars, one that's become a staple in my own sunny spots for its prairie-born resilience and cheerful late summer show. Purple coneflower, or Echinacea as many call it, is a plant that feels right at home in a pot because it hails from the open grasslands of North America, where thin soils and unpredictable rains are the norm. In the ground, it often competes with aggressive neighbors or struggles in compacted earth. But lift it into a container and suddenly every variable is in your control. I remember tucking a few into large terracotta pots on my back porch one spring, not expecting much beyond a few blooms. By midsummer, they were standing tall at 2 to 3 feet, their daisy-like petals in soft pinks and purples drawing bees from across the yard. The variety known as Magnus has especially sturdy stems and wide horizontal petals that give the flowers a fuller, more dramatic presence, perfect for catching the eye from a distance. What I love most about Echinacea in containers is how little it demands once settled. Planted in full sun, water deeply the first season to help those roots establish, and then step back. It thrives on that dry-soak-dry rhythm, much like the wild prairies it came from. In hotter zones across the southern United States or Mediterranean-influenced parts of southern Europe, it shrugs off intense afternoon heat without missing a beat. Up north in cooler zones or the British Isles, where summers can be milder, it still pushes out flowers well into September, especially if you give it a sheltered spot against a south-facing wall. And don't rush to tidy up those spent blooms. Leave the prickly seed heads standing. They add a lovely architectural touch through winter, catching frost in a way that sparkles on a gray January morning, and they become a feast for goldfinches and other small birds. Pair it with something low and mounding nearby, and you've got a simple duo that feels effortless yet full of life. Shifting gears to a plant that's quietly stolen my heart for its ability to summon hummingbirds and butterflies like a magnet, let's talk about Agastache, often called hummingbird mint. This one surprised me the first time I tried it in a pot. I expected a fussy herb, but it turned out to be one of the most forgiving sun lovers I grow. Originating from the drier regions of the American Southwest and parts of Mexico, it craves the sharp drainage a container provides, something that's harder to guarantee in many garden beds, especially in areas with clay-heavy soils common in parts of the Midwest or rainy Northwest Europe. Give it a well-draining mix and a sunny deck spot, and it rewards you with slender tubular flower spikes in shades from cool blues to warm corals that keep coming from early summer right up to the first frosts. One of my favorite moments last year involved a blue-flowered type tucked into a medium-sized pot near my morning coffee bench. The fragrance hit me first, that gentle mix of mint and licorice wafting on the breeze, followed by the whir of tiny wings as hummingbirds darted in for a sip. In warmer, drier climates like California or the south of France, it stands up to heat waves with ease, needing only an occasional deep drink. In more humid or cooler spots, such as the Pacific Northwest or central Germany, the container setup prevents the root rot that can plague it in wet winters. Just make sure your pot has generous drainage holes and elevate it slightly on feet to let air circulate underneath. It stays compact enough at around 2 to 3 feet for most patios, and a light touch with any feeding keeps the focus on those blooms rather than leafy excess. Imagine pairing it with the Echinacea we just discussed. Their colors dance together beautifully, creating a pollinator haven that buzzes with activity all season long. There's something deeply soothing about lavender in a container, especially the compact Munstead variety that has become a reliable friend in my garden for over a decade now. I first planted it after noticing how often ground-grown lavender in my area would turn leggy and woody at the base by its second or third year, particularly in places with humid summers like the eastern United States or much of lowland Europe. In a pot, though, it stays neat and bushy, its silvery foliage and fragrant purple spikes catching the sun just right. The Mediterranean heritage of this plant means it loves the quick warm-up a container offers in spring and the excellent drainage that keeps its crown dry through damp winters. Key whether you're gardening in Zone 5 with its freeze-thaw cycles or milder Zone 8 along the Atlantic coast. Picture this. On a warm evening, the scent rises from the pot on your patio table, warding off mosquitoes naturally while you sit and unwind. Munstead tops out at a manageable foot to 18 inches, making it ideal for smaller pots or even window boxes. It asks for full sun and that same hands-off watering approach. Let the soil dry out completely between thorough soakings. In cooler, wetter European climates like the UK or Scandinavia's southern edges, I find it benefits from a gravel mulch around the base to further discourage moisture buildup. And the bonus? Those aromatic oils in the leaves act as a gentle deterrent to aphids and other pests, reducing the need for any interventions. I've paired it with trailing elements in larger setups, where its upright form provides structure and its scent layers and sensory depth that makes the whole space feel alive. For those shadier nooks that so many of us have, perhaps under an overhang or beside a tall fence, hostas offer a leafy solution that's almost magical in containers. The Patriot variety, with its bold green leaves edged in crisp white, has a way of illuminating even the dimmest corner. I once had a dark patio spot that felt forgotten until I elevated a hosta in a simple glazed pot. Suddenly, the white margins caught what little light filtered through, reflecting it back and making the area feel twice as bright. What makes this work so well in pots is the elevation itself. Slugs, those notorious nibblers in ground plantings, have a harder time reaching a raised container, especially if you tuck a bit of copper tape around the rim as a gentle barrier. Patriot stays nicely contained at about 18 to 20 inches wide, filling a 12 to 14-inch pot without overwhelming it, and its thick foliage doubles as a living mulch, shading the soil and cutting down on watering needs. Hardy across a wide range from cold zone 3 winters in the northern plains or Baltic regions to warmer zone 8 areas, it returns faithfully for decades with minimal fuss. In humid summers common to the southeast or western Europe, the container's better airflow helps prevent some of the leaf spot issues that can crop up in dense beds. Every few years, I gently divide the clump in early spring, potting up the extras to share or expand my shade collection. Imagine combining it with a dark-leaved companion for contrast. The effect is like a living painting that changes subtly with the light throughout the day. When autumn starts to whisper and many plants wind down, sedum like the reliable autumn joy steps in to carry the show. This succulent perennial stores water in its fleshy leaves and stems, making it perfectly suited to the ups and downs of container life. I've grown it in pots that get baked by afternoon sun on exposed decks, and it never complains. Its broccoli-like buds in spring give way to sturdy mounds of green through summer, then flat-top flower heads that shift from soft pink to deep russet as the season cools. In winter, those dried heads hold their shape under snow or frost, offering structure when the garden otherwise feels bare. What sets Autumn Joy apart is its four-season presence without demanding much from you. Full sun to light shade works, and once established, it needs water only during prolonged dry spells. Ideal for busy gardeners in drought-prone areas of the western U.S. or drier parts of Spain and Italy. In cooler, wetter zones like the Great Lakes region or the Netherlands, its tolerance for poor soil prevents the legginess that can happen in richer ground. I often use it as a centerpiece in mixed pots, where its upright habit anchors softer spillers. The pollinators adore the late blooms, and I've watched butterflies linger on them well into October, a small gift that makes the fading light feel abundant. Foliage can be the quiet hero of any container, and heuchera or coral bells prove that point beautifully. While they do send up delicate flower wands in early summer, it's the leaves that steal the scene, ranging from deep burgundies that look almost black in certain lights to glowing limes and warm caramels. One year, I paired a deep purple variety with a chartreuse grass in a shaded urn, and the combination drew compliments from every visitor who passed by. In a pot, heuchera's low, mounding habit covers the soil completely, suppressing weeds naturally and holding moisture where it matters most, right at the roots. These plants adapt wonderfully across climates. In hot, humid southern zones, choose varieties with thicker leaves to resist scorch. In cooler European winters, their evergreen tendencies in milder areas add winter interest. They handle partial shade to a bit of sun, thriving in the controlled environment of a container where you can tweak drainage if needed. Refresh them every few years by dividing in spring, and you'll have plenty to spread around the garden or share with friends. For vertical drama without the flop, perennial salvia like caradonna brings an elegant presence to pots. Its dark, nearly black stems support vivid violet-blue spikes that stand firm even in breezy spots on a deck. I planted one in a large container last spring, and by early June it was blooming strongly, then rebloomed after a quick trim in midsummer. Native to lean, well-drained soils, it loves the sharp conditions a pot provides, avoiding the sogginess that can trouble it in heavier beds. Full sun and minimal feeding keep it compact and floriferous, whether in the heat of a Texas summer or the shorter seasons of northern Europe. The stiff stems mean no staking, and the aromatic foliage deters many pests naturally. It's a plant that feels purposeful, adding height and color without asking for constant attention. Daylilies might seem like ground dwellers at heart, but the compact Stella d'Oro variety changes that story in containers. Bred for repeat blooming, its golden yellow flowers keep coming in waves from early summer onward, each spent stem easily snipped to encourage the next flush. Its roots stay manageable in a pot, and the foliage tops out at about a foot, leaving room for companions without crowding. Tough as nails across zones 3 to 9, it handles poor soil and heat with grace, making it a staple for gardeners from the arid southwest to temperate European lowlands. A light compost top dressing in spring is all the boost it needs, and the cheerful blooms bring a sunny warmth that lifts the spirits on even the busiest days. Finally, for that softening cascade so many containers crave, Geranium Roseanne delivers perennial magic where annuals usually reign. Its violet-blue flowers with pale centers tumble over pot rims from late spring until frost, never needing deadheading, thanks to its sterile nature. The plant simply keeps blooming without pausing for seeds. In zones 5 through 8, it returns reliably, trailing up to 2 feet and creating that overflowing look that makes a simple pot feel abundant. I've used it to edge mixed containers, pairing it with upright sedums or hostas for layered beauty that shifts with the seasons. It adapts to sun or light shade, and in humid climates, the good airflow in a pot keeps it healthy. One plant can transform an ordinary arrangement into something that feels designed with care. As the seasons turn and these plants settle into their pots, there's a quiet satisfaction in knowing you've built something lasting. No more frantic spring replacements or summer regrets. Just the steady rhythm of growth, the buzz of bees, the flash of a bird at the seed heads, and the simple pleasure of stepping outside to a space that feels tended by nature as much as by you. Try 1 or 2 this season. Watch how they respond to your corner of the world, and let the garden teach you its own gentle lessons. From the soil up, that's where the real magic happens.